felt overwhelmed and frustrated with taxes, you don't want to miss today's episode. Today we have very special guest, tax lawyer and coach Stephanie Ernould from Paris, France, who is going to talk about money-saving tax tips and biggest mistakes people do with taxes and how to avoid them. Hello everybody, welcome. I'm super excited to be here with you today. Today we have a very special guest, amazing tax lawyer and coach, Stephanie Ernould from Paris, who is going to talk about some money-saving tax tips and biggest mistakes people do with taxes and how to avoid them. It's my honor and pleasure to have Stephanie here on this show. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you.
Hi Nina, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about taxes and how taxes are not supposed to be scary, and that actually taxes are a good thing because it means that you make money.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. I want to dive in immediately because this topic is one of the most important topics if you have a business. So let's talk about the biggest misconceptions people have about taxes.
One of the misconceptions people have is that no matter what, they will have to pay taxes, which is not true. You only have to pay taxes when you actually make profits and sales. I mean, you may have to pay like some small amount of taxes, but on your sales you may have to pay taxes like VAT. But one thing you have to remember is that if you are profitable, you'll pay taxes, so it's a good thing.
Thank you so much for that. So, Stephanie, what is the most important thing every coach needs to know about taxes?
I think the most important thing to know is first make sure you don't you're not confused between your sales and your profit. Because sometimes people think that they make a sale, like they sell something like 100 euros or dollars, and they think it's like in the pocket. But then you have to take out all of your expenses, and then you have to work out all of the taxes on that. And so sometimes people do not save enough to pay the taxes.
Thank you so much. So we already touched a little bit about the mistakes people do with taxes. Can we dive deep and talk a little bit more about mistakes that people usually do with taxes and how to avoid them?
So what I've seen in practice is that people sometimes they are confused between the personal and the business expenses. So business expenses, it's going to help you pay less taxes because you're going to take it out of the sales you are making, of the profit. And so you have to make sure you have a clear understanding of what can be considered as an expense in terms of business. And second of all, sometimes people just don't want to deal with the taxes, and they just ignore it, and then it gets super stressful, and they get worried, and then it's when a problem happens. But if you actually deal with your taxes right away, there's no reason you're going to have problems with the authorities.
Thank you so much. Did you see any other mistakes that coaches do or other people do with taxes that we can prevent that?
They actually don't keep the receipts. Yeah, so keep the receipts. They don't keep the receipts, and now it's great because there are so many applications that are so useful, because you can actually just, like, you go to the restaurant, you go to a business lunch, for example, and then you just have to take a photo of the receipt, and which is great is that you can actually write a note and say, for example, tomorrow I'm going to have lunch with Nina, and I'm going to write, like a lunch with Nina. And so if I have a tax audit, the tax authorities will see that it was actually for business purpose, because we did this podcast, for example, which actually promotes my law firm. So you have to keep all the receipts and take all the justifications and write them down. And I know it's kind of weird, but if you ever have a tax audit, if you have all of the justification and write them down, and then you show that to the tax authorities, they will see that you actually have good faith and you're not trying to mess with them.
People are usually scared to make mistakes. Can we talk about what happens if they make a small mistakes?
If they make like a small mistake, for example, they forgot to, declare a revenue, there are two cases. If the authorities don't see it, you can actually, on your own, you can actually go to them and say, hey, I forgot to pay the taxes this year or this month. And you can actually do the declaration. And so you may pay late interest payments, but you might not be liable to fines, because they will consider that you have good faith. And the second case is when you made a mistake, maybe you were not aware of that, and the tax authorities come to you and they do a tax audit and they do a tax reassessment. And in this case, they may, like in the first case, also just ask you for late interest payments, and may not apply fine if you show them that you had good faith and you had no idea. But basically, you just have to pay the tax you had to pay in the first place. So you don't go to jail. I mean, one of the things that we haven't mentioned is that I'm a French tax lawyer, but I'm trained in international tax law. So things might be different in your jurisdiction, but there are some ground rules that can apply everywhere. So basically, that's how it works regarding any tax audits or problems that you can have with taxes.
Thank you so much for that. So can we talk a little bit about how much money do we need to save to pay taxes? Do you have any number or percentage?
It's kind of hard to say, because of course it depends on taxes always depends on the amount of money we're talking about. But I think if I give a range, it would be between 20%, I would say, and 60%, because I include personal tax and business tax. So maybe one of the concepts that it may be hard to understand when you're a coach and you're an entrepreneur, because when you're an employee, you only pay personal tax. And your employee actually pay the business tax on their company. But when you're an entrepreneur, you have a business, so you have the business tax, and then you have the personal tax on your own. So I would say between 20% and 60%, because I also include the tax that you can have on sales. But for example, if you have, I know we're going to talk about this maybe after, but if you have a company, maybe you account for 30% or something, or 30% would be fair. And on your own, maybe an additional 20 or 30%, depending on your jurisdiction. It can't be higher than that.
Thank you so much. You already touched the topic that I want to discuss with you is what is the difference in taxes if you're a sole proprietary and a limited liability company? Can you talk a little bit about that? What is the best for coaches to have their own company?
The main thing to understand is that when you have a company, it's like you have two separate entities. You have the company as a taxable entity and yourself as a taxable entity. So if you have a company, it means that, for example, if you have, you're profitable and you actually don't give yourself any compensation because you have other income, then you You won't pay taxes on your own. You won't have personal taxation. But if you are a sole proprietor and so you don't have a company aside, then like any profit that you will incur will actually imply personal taxation on yourself. So from a tax point of view, it really depends on how much you are making. Like the more you're making, the more profitable it is for you to have a company, because then you can decide, okay, I don't know, I made I don't know, like 100K, and then I know I don't need, I don't know, maybe I only need like 30K to pay my rent and all of my personal expenses. So I'm just going to give myself this amount of income. But if you have, like, for example, if you're making less than that and you know you're going to use all of the revenues from the business, then it's not very interesting to have a company. It's better to be on a sole proprietor, because you actually have only one level of taxation, like on your own.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. So, Stephanie, could you give us some money saving tax tips? You also already mentioned a couple of them, but can we also summarize some of them?
Try as much as you can to have lots of business expenses. What I mean is that expenses that actually can be paid by your company. So it's kind of easy because you can have all of, for example, internet. There's no brainer, and your phone, which means that I love to give the example because, for example, if your internet bill is like 100 euros and your taxation rate is like 30%, it means that the real price for you is 70 euros. It's not 100 euros. So this is a saving you have. So, and try, like, for example, if you have, I don't know, a conference, you have to go and you can expense it. Maybe try to, if it's the location is good, maybe try and like do vacation there, But it has to come from the business, It's like the business, it has to be like if there's any tax audits, you have to be able to say that it was a business expense. But nothing keeps you from actually doing other personal stuff when you're there.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I want to ask you a question because so many coaches do additional self-development work. They do additional courses to improve their work. Are these courses also tax deductible?
That's a very good question, Nina, and thank you for asking that, because yes, definitely. And again, it depends on jurisdictions. But I'm a French tax lawyer, and we have a very, very aggressive system. So I really doubt that. I cannot say, and I've worked with many international transactions and stuff, so I know a bit about other jurisdictions. But yes, because the only thing that you have to prove is that you need this to perform your business. So if you need that to run your business, like getting trained, then you can actually consider it's a business expense. But you have to make sure that you get an invoice. So for example, if you have coaches who want to do one of your programs, Nina, and then you have to make an invoice, so then they can actually have the receipt and prove that I did this training, and it would be really hard for the tax authorities to prove that it doesn't have anything to do with their business.
Thank you so much. Maybe this is the good advice. Keep receipt, keep emails, keep everything, and try to make connection with your business and prove it that this is really something that your business needs to run. Thank you so much. Any other tips that you have for us?
Just don't be scared. And if I know people don't like to talk about it, But if you ever have like a tax audit, and make sure you get advice, because like every day I see case laws and I read the decision of the court, and I can tell that they didn't have any advice at the beginning, and because you have rights. So people get scared because tax authorities are the government, and people think government know it all. They don't, and they have tax experts, but they are not trained to actually defend them. So they will only find the problems, and it's kind of surprising, but they actually like when the person actually bringing a tax lawyer, because then we give their arguments, and then they go like, oh yeah, okay, we were wrong, so bye bye. So don't be scared. It's government, but they are not always right.
Thank you so much for that. So we know if we have tax audit, the best thing what we can do is really seek advice from tax lawyer and really consult about everything. As you said, sometimes people make mistakes, and government is also run by people, and people do mistakes.
Even like just have a meeting or just a call, and I don't know how other lawyers work, but don't be scared of lawyers either. Like we are legally, we have to actually write a proposal, and you have to agree before we charge anything. I mean, that's how it works, at least in France, and I think it's like that in most countries, so don't be scared.
Stephanie, thank you for this awesome interview. It was my pleasure to have you here. Can you tell us more about where people can find you, and tell us more about your company?
So I set up my firm 5 years ago after working 10 years in big law firms such as PricewaterhouseCoopers. And what is special about me is that I did an MBA. I have a double MBA from London Business School and Columbia Business School. So I'm trained in marketing, finance, and economics. So it gives me like more practical background and understanding more the implications of tax, and I'm much more like strategic in the recommendation I give. So you can find my website. You can type on Google Stephanie Ernould and you will find my website, and I'm also on LinkedIn. And yeah, if you have questions, just reach out, send me an email, and I think I'll also have my phone number, my professional phone number. So
Stephanie, thank you so much. Everybody who is seeking tax advice and lives in Europe or in France, please reach out to Stephanie. She is amazing. She also has not only tax lawyer background, she also has like economics background. She understands like marketing and finances, so she can really help you with your business. Thank you so much for being here, Stephanie. It was my utmost pleasure. Thank you so much. And everybody else who is listening, keep working on yourself, because the world needs that love and light inside of you more than ever. I'm sending you lots of love and big hug. Bye.